just can't stay home because I see the way the world is going, and I'm so afraid for the future for my grandchildren. I have to take a stand.
Marching for equality and change. I'm Brandon Rowe, just outside of Nathan Phillips Square. Coming up while tens of thousands of women of all ages and the men who support them decided to march for a very important cause. This time last year, tens of thousands of women and their supporters showed up to march in protest of the inauguration of President Donald Trump. I'm Brandon Rowe at Nathan Phillips Square, where again, tens of thousands of people have showed up in droves, but this year the focus has shifted.
I'm here because I'm the mother of 3 girls, and I think it's important to teach my daughters that they can be and do anything.
I want her to feel the excitement and feel the power and be part of the community.
This year is more than just dumping Trump. It's about creating a world of equality for the next generation of women.
My body, my business! My body, my business!
For them to see what it looks like to take action within their community and to see what happens when we all get together in solidarity and take action together.
I'm here because I like to support women so they don't always stay at the bottom forever.
Local issues were on full blast today, including marginalized voices that finally need to be heard.
All the systems that are still in place, sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, anti-immigration sentiments, it's all still with us. They all still have great value that need to be taken down.
Men need to acknowledge the issues that women face in our society.
And the Me Too and Time's Up campaign that has sparked more women to have the courage to speak up against sexual and gender-based violence.
We are not accepting that kind of hatred, that kind of misogyny that we are seeing so much of in this day and age. It's got to stop.
We've collected here to make sure that everyone knows that we will not take it anymore.
Zanana Akande has spent more than 40 years being a woman's advocate and hopes her grandchildren take something away from being at this year's march.
I hope they'll realize that people haven't come out here just to have a good time, but to make serious statements about changes in real policies. And I hope that when they're my age, they won't have to do this.
Organizers tell me that it's sad in 2018 they have to continue to keep doing these marches, but until they see equality for all women, they'll be back again next year. In Toronto, Brandon Rowe, City News.
Sex work is work.
The next step for women's rights is to acknowledge that sex workers exist and that we need their help.
I'm Cora McDonald in Montreal at the Women's March here, where hundreds of women, men, and children have gathered 1 year later.
Me Too movement, what's next, all of that I think has been spurred on to a large extent by what happened a year ago. The number of women out in the streets across the world, which is really amazing. I was actually in Washington last year, and it was, I get shivers just thinking about it.
Organizers say this year they're focusing on more marginalized groups of women.
And that's what we're doing today. We're explaining who is not there and why we need them there and what happens when they're not there.
This sex worker thinks we still have a long way to go.
We need to come together. Women need to see sex work as a legitimate part of labor and see it as such. It's just labor, just like their corporate jobs.
And although less people showed up, those who did were profoundly invested in the experience.
It's been a really good year for women to actually make their voice heard. We have to say what we want, what we propose to society. And
for City News in Montreal, I'm Cora McDonald.
Well, 1 year ago today, thousands of women took to the streets in Washington to make their voices heard and protest the newly inaugurated President Trump. Today, the Women's March continues as thousands gather in Washington and cities across the world. They're advocating for things like human rights, reproductive rights, and environmental justice.
We are ready to fight for a government that doesn't shut down and understands that you can't incentivize work if childcare costs more than you're paid. We're ready to make health care accessible and affordable. We're ready to deal in facts and science and with ethics and integrity.
The march in Washington lasted for several hours, with supporters hoping to encourage women to run for public office and push women's issues to the forefront of political conversation.
The power and energy in this space is just so overwhelming and so amazing.
And a major turnout for the Women's March in LA today, as is estimated over 500,000 people lined the streets, carrying signs and wearing pink to show support for the march. Headliners took the stage to perform, and celebrities didn't hold back as they motivated protesters.
Well, today we're not just standing up, we're marching. And when you get a bunch of upstanders together, my friends, that's called a movement.
This march and this movement is far more ambitious in scope and scale, and it extends beyond one political actor or even one political party. What we're calling for is sustainable and systematic change.
And I promise that you can count on me to always use every privilege I have to give voice to the voiceless and speak truth to power.
Aside from the Me Too and Time's Up movement, a major undertone of today's Women's March is encouraging those who are eligible to get out and vote later this year. Voters in the United States head to the polls for congressional elections on November 6th.